What person are you glad you didn't date and why? A few years back I was getting out of a long relationship. My boss's sister decided to set me up with one of her coworkers. Let's call her Susan. So she gives me Susan's number, and after a bunch of hays and hows, when I decide to give her a ring, she sounds alright on the phone and is very open and flirtatious. I asked her if she wanted to go and get some coffee, to which she said yes. We agreed to meet at her parents' house in a couple of days and then head out to get coffee from there. In the 2 days between making our plans and the actual date, she starts sending me affectionate text messages that always address me as sweetie or hun. I figured that if anything, she is just a really affectionate person and try not to read too far into it. Eventually, the time of our meeting arrives and I go to pick her up. She is a knockout drop-dead blonde with a full tan and a nice figure. I am kind of a slob and so I can't believe my luck. As we are getting ready to go, she says that she would rather take her car since it would make her feel more comfortable being a good guy. I can see her reasoning and acquiesce. This would later come back to bite me royally in the ass. So we start driving when she informs me I'm not really in the mood for coffee. Let's get some drinks now. I am not a drinker. I like trees, but alcohol has never held any allure for me. However, at this point, I'm going along for the ride and agree. 15 minutes later finds us in a brewery/sports bar called BJ's. I shit you not, BJ's. Anyway, I decided to stick to soda while Susan decides to take things slowly by ordering an adios motherfucker to get things started. Pretty soon though, we are hitting it off real well. I tell her about growing up with a terminal illness and she relates how she got over ovarian cancer. We find out that we share some common interests in movie tastes and hobbies. Things are going fine until she has her third drink. Oh, she hisses while ducking down. What? I ask, confused. You see that guy over there in the booth with that girl in the blue dress? I see the one she means. Well, she continues, I sorta used to F him. I am taken aback by her blunt honesty. She then goes on to explain how she lets people use her as a means to cover her insecurities. Next thing you know, she is opening up to me like I'm mother effing Oprah, and she is all about how she likes to cut herself. She rolls up her sleeve to show some fresh bandages and how she has attempted suicide in the past. Then she reaches across the bar to take my hands. She looks into my eyes and says, you know, I feel a real connection to you. Then her phone goes off. She checks it and informs me that it is a text from her ex-boyfriend. He is in the Marines and shipping out the next day. Apparently, he is coming over to meet up with us so she can say goodbye. By this time, I have realized that I don't want to put my D in crazy. I also realized that we took her car and she is now drunk. And to make it even worse, we are in a neighborhood that I have little knowledge of. I'm effing trapped. Pretty soon the ex-boyfriend shows up. Big beefcake guy in his Marine uniform. She starts to flirt heavily with him and ignores me. She is on her 6th or 7th pink panty dropper. It soon becomes known that the ex-boyfriend is also in the business of recruitment. Do you ever think of signing up? He asks me as he takes in my nerdy 5'6" frame. Nope, I answer. I've got medical dispensation. Oh yeah? He asks. What have you got? Susan starts to answer for me. Oh, he's got cystic fib. I cut her off. I'm allergic to bullets. He doesn't look impressed. The drunk at the next table, however, shoots vodka out her nose. Soon, Susan and Beefy Marine go outside to have a cigarette and leave me to watch the table. I just want to get the F out of there at this point. I should mention that Susan's day job is as a behavioral therapist for autistic kids. My boss's sister is her supervisor, and I happen to know that Susan is expected to be at work at 6 a.m. I know this because Susan told me, as well as my boss's sister threatening me to take care of Susan. By this time, it is creeping past 12. After they come back from cigarettes, or more likely backseat blowjob or something of the sort, I decided it was time to try and get this crazy chick's keys from her and get back to my car. But not before she can introduce me to 3 more exes and one guy who she practically starts making out with in front of me. I asked her for her keys and said that it was time to go. No one drives my car but me. I weigh my options and for some reason decide that it can't be more than 5 or 6 blocks back to her place. She might be fine to drive that far, and if all else fails, I'll effing talk and roll out of the moving car. I get her to her car and we start heading back. Suddenly she looks up in her rear view mirror and screams, "Cops!" before randomly swerving down a side street. She starts digging and sagging at high speed through residential neighborhoods. I look behind us only to see no car. Finally, she decides that we lost them and heads back to her place. Now you think the story would end here, but there is more crazy to come. As I was trying to make my getaway, she asked me to drive her back to the bar. If you don't, I will drive back drunk. I'll then drive home drunker and probably get in a crash and die. She tells me, fine, F it, whatever. I tell her I will give her a ride. Before we can get in my car, however, she informs me that she has to pee. I figured that she will go into the house. I figured it wrong. This chick hikes up her skirt, pulls her thong aside, squats down and proceeds to piss on the sidewalk right in front of me. I immediately spin around and avert my eyes and mumble an apology as if pissing on the sidewalk without warning was somehow my faux PA. It's okay, she says. You can watch it. I don't mind. In fact, I kind of like it. I decline her offer. Finally, I get her in the car and start heading back to the bar. On the way back, she grabs my hand and slams it into her crotch. She starts telling me how she feels. A real connection to me. I don't want to say soulmates, but have you ever seen the movie The Notebook? I tell her I haven't. Oh well, it's kind of like that the whole time she is saying this and my hand is in her crotch. All I can think is EU. She drip dried. Then she says what is maybe the icing on the bat. She crazy. Cake boss. Dolce Joe? She says the last time I felt this way about someone, they didn't feel the same way. She She lets out a little laugh. I tried to kill myself. That's it. Get this crazy bee out of my car. I pull into the parking lot. I pull up to the curb and try to get her out as fast and politely as possible. Can I kiss you? She asks. No, I would be a little uncomfortable with that, I tell her. Well, what about just one on the cheek? She pleads. I figure fine. Anything to get her out of the car. I lean over and pat my cheek only to have her grab my head and then, like the face hugger from Aliens, jam her tongue down my throat. I start to flail around. She finally releases her death grip, no doubt after depositing some eggs, and exits my car. Before she goes, she leans down and says, I really F things up tonight, didn't I? You'll probably never call me again. No, I lie like a steaming pile of she. I then get the F out of there. The next morning at work, I relayed this crazy story to my boss when suddenly I got a call from his sister. Susan didn't show up for work that morning. She isn't answering her phone. Her parents say that she didn't come home either. And everyone wants to know what I did with Susan. Great. The crazy chick goes missing. I was the last person to see her, and her effing DNA dripped right onto my passenger seat. I'm going to jail. Eventually, she turns up claiming that her phone had died and that she had spent the whole night at the hospital with her grandfather, who had a heart attack. I of course know all of this is bullshit, but whatever. I don't have to deal with her. Or so I thought. That's when the voicemails began. Tearful, jarring sobs of I sob, just sob. Wanted to say sob hi to you. And hey love, why aren't you answering my calls? And my favorite, what did I do? Eventually, a month later or so, she got the hint and left me alone.